went up on stage and I went through it. And I don't know if you saw this bit, but there's a bit in the talk where I go, I ripped pants!
You're listening to the Occupational Philosophers with Simon Banks and John Rice.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Occupational Philosophers, a not-so-serious business podcast designed to spark your curiosity, creativity and imagination with a little bit of philosophy thrown in. As ever, I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, collaborator, Simon Banks. Simon, how are you and what's caught your eye this week?
First answer, pretty good. Second answer, what's caught my eye with apologies to anyone listening, which is a lot of people who aren't in the UK or Australia, and that is the notion of what is right brought on by the second test of the Ashes this week. And John, I'm not sure if you're up to this, but he already yawning. Yeah, so I appreciate we're not a sports podcast. So as I said, apologies, but your Prime Minister's commenting on it, our Prime Minister's commenting on it. Essentially, there is a law in cricket and saying if you step outside your crease, which is a little bit near the stumps, you are out. An English person was stumped, okay, when he left his crease, but because he thought the over was finished and it wasn't, he went for a little bit of a wander. And the Australians, being quite quick-witted, I believe, they went, bang, you're out. And this whole thing has come out, well, he was out, but it's not within the spirit of the game. So I'm interested in this whole notion, which we talk about. I'm right, you're wrong, but there's there's a big grey area in between. And it's pretty much split down, along country lines. And a lot of ex-cricketers are saying, no, well, he did the wrong thing. But then some are like, the moral outrage is huge. So that's caught my eye. And just one little thing. And they're saying, well, what is the spirit of cricket? Well, that's whatever we say it is. You know what I mean?
So that's open for interpretation. A lot of interpretation.
100%. Yeah. So the umpire gave him out. Yep, you're definitely out. But the spirit of cricket said, no, you shouldn't have appealed for that.
Spirit of cricket.
Spirit.
Is that the spirit of cricket? Is that sit on someone's shoulder? The spirit of cricket. Telling someone.
Yeah, well, it occupies some spot, but nobody knows where it is or where it started or what it looks like.
There's not a holy trinity of cricket, is there? I've missed something.
Yeah. So the person who got out says, oh, that's not in the spirit of cricket. Yeah. The people who got him out said, yeah, you're out. See ya.
Well,
so there we go.
All I could say is you've increased my lexicon of cricketing terms tenfold in that sort of explanation there, because I know nothing of cricket.
And apologies to every person who listens who has no interest in cricket, which I would say would be a whole lot. What's caught your curious eye, though?
I'm going to change tack completely because what caught my eye is the fact that yesterday was 4th of July, Independence Day in the States, and it always makes me laugh that they have big festivals, including a hot dog eating competition, which was won yesterday by a chap with the most brilliant name, which is Joey Jaws Chestnut. So Joey Chestnut won the hot dog eating competition. He ate 62 hot dogs in 10 minutes. And he's held this title for about 16 years, which is unbelievable. But he didn't beat his record because that was 76 hot dogs. And the reason is because it was raining. So I don't know.
He doesn't eat so well in the humidity.
Yeah, I don't know what. Maybe the buns get wet or something like that, and it's more difficult to eat. Anyway, I was just curious about that and whether you'd ever invite him to your barbecue, because it'd be hell, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It'd be good to clean up at the end of the day. I've got a few sausages left over. Whew. And also, Bags not being on the bathroom cleaning duty that day.
After Joey Chestnut. Big shout out.
Yeah, big shout out to Joey. And also an Australian person came third. I literally read that today. So, we're making impact where it matters, John.
So, who have we have a guest episode, Simon. Who is our wonderful guest this week?
Well, John, as always, it's very exciting. We're in for an absolute treat. Our guest is a designer, writer, researcher, learner, educator, and all-round creative polymath, which is something we've never not heard, like all the time. And she's obsessed with design that puts experience first. She's helped everyone from hungry startups to global giants transform through design. She has led, taught, and been part of teams designing digital and physical products, services, brands, events, physical spaces, processes, values, systems, learning experiences, rituals, models, methods, and almost everything in between, as if there could be anything left in between. She's worked across the world, London, Milan, Hong Kong, New York, worked with companies such as Fjord, Accenture Song, Idean, Frog, Capgemini, and just to keep adding it out, currently a higher degree by research candidate at Torrens University, where her practice-based research focuses on exploring the nexus of design, post-humanism, economics, ethics, and philosophy through the lens of radical design theory. And if that is not enough, she's also Adjunct Faculty at RMIT University in Melbourne. Whew! Wow, what an intro. John, welcome to our guest, Chi Ryan. Chi, hello. Yay, welcome. Woo.
Wow, it's a nice welcome to get a round of applause.
Well, we're a nice podcast. So, Chi, what's caught your curious eye this week?
Have you ever heard of something called an egg corn?
No. Tell us more.
Have you ever heard the phrase nip it in the bud?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
A lot of people get that wrong and say nip it in the butt.
Ah.
And an eggcorn is a linguistic term for when people get a common phrase incorrect, but it's sort of right. So, for example, another one would be something like curve your enthusiasm instead of curb your enthusiasm.
I like that, yeah.
And biting my time instead of biding my time. And it's funny because you said the spirit of cricket, and that's kind of like the spirit of Christmas, but it's not quite an eggcorn. But anyway, it's these have been keeping me awake, and I've got this really funny idea that it would be really fun to condition myself to use eggcorns all the time instead of using the actual phrases.
Well, just do it on purpose, you mean? Just to sort of mix things up?
Yeah, totally, to mess with everybody.
Yeah, I like that.
Kind of like messing with the algorithms in people's heads.
You could almost do it in a talk or something, say how many eggcorns you could put in before people start to like roll their eyes and go, oh, here we go. This is full of, doesn't this person know what they're talking about? I like that. John's got a similar one. I've got a saying up on my desk, and I say, have a go at life, rip the shit out of it. And John always says, have a go at life, rip the arse out of it. I say, John, that's not it. Now I can label it, say, you're just egg-corning, man.
But the thing is that is absolutely rooted in my head now. I can't change it. I always say rip the arse out of it. I can't change it. It's fixated in my mind, even though I know it's wrong since I've said it. Anyway, not that rip the shit. I mean, that's still, is that any better? Anyway.
It's quite wrong. I mean, it's a bit like saying, there's a funny story about this, but you know the saying, when the shit hits the fan?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes things don't always have quite the same meaning when they translate from one language to another. And when I was working in Italy one day, and I had quite a mixed team. They were from all over the place, from Brazil and Turkey and Italy and all over. Anyway, I said something about, the shit's going to hit the fan. And there was a few grimaces that they took it really literally, like, oh, gross, that's disgusting. And I never really thought about it like that before, but now I really think about it when I say it. So ripping the shit out of something is kind of gross.
A famous Australian actor said that, and I was listening to him on Take 5 with Zan Rowe, and she said, how do you do so much cool stuff? He says, I don't know, just have a go at life, rip the shit out of it. So that's why I thought, what a great little piece. But look, moving on, Chi, where in the world are you today? We have listeners from all over the world. Where are you in the world? I
am in Sydney, Australia, and it has been a lovely winter day here.
What can you see out the window, Chi? Do you have a window? Or have you been in prison somewhere?
Well, it is a penal colony. Look, I do have a window, but my blind is down because the sun was blinding me before as it was going down. So I put the blind down. But if I could see out there, it's my balcony with my little relaxo area in the on the balcony.
Very good. Can you fit a chair out there? Can you, or a sun lounger, something bigger? How big's the balcony?
It has a sun lounge and a few disco balls and some fairy lights. It's not particularly large, but it's quite relaxing. Little cold to sit out there at the moment, but in summertime it's very nice.
Very nice. And I like the fact that you call it the relaxo area. That sounds something like you could advertise. Get your new relaxo.
Well, in Australia, we do this. We put O or an SY on the end. So you don't say relax. You go, I'm going to pop outside for an old relaxo. So that is a little bit of our phonetic structure, John. So, and you don't say, I'm going down to the beach for a swim. You go down to the old beacho for a swim. Who's going to join me? Yeah, so...
What do you do then when you want to play bingo?
Oh, it's Bingsy. Yeah.
Right.
Easy, John. Easy.
Enough of this nonsense. So, Chi, we got a first sort of round of questions. We call them dinner party introductions because we're always curious when we meet people at dinner parties. But we wanted to mix up our questions. So rather than the, hey, what do you do? Where are you from? And that usual sort of style of question, we're going to mix that up and ask some questions which hopefully will tease out something a bit more interesting. So with that in mind, having opened the wine and I've just topped up your glass, we've settled down to some nice foods, maybe some tapas. I don't know what your favorite food is, whatever it is. Imagine it's in front of you now. And I say, hey, Chi, nice to meet you. What's giving you joy at the moment?
That's an interesting question. At the moment, food isn't giving me a lot of joy because my husband and I are on a diet. So we're currently eating packaged meals, those ones that get delivered to you, under 400 calories. But it seems to be working. So that's good. They're actually, look, I won't tell you the brand, but I will say that they are actually quite delicious. I do think they're quite delicious. But I guess what's that famous quote by Kate Moss? Nothing tastes as good as skinny fingers. I don't know. I really shouldn't say that.
Yeah, I remember that.
I shouldn't say that. I don't believe that. Look, COVID and all that, and a couple of injuries and chronic illnesses later, my waistline's not looking as and I'm not as young as I used to be. So it's time to cut the portion sizes. So although it's not food's not bringing me joy, the knowledge that maybe I might fit into some of my older clothes, that brings me some joy.
Yeah.
Well, luckily, John, at our dinner party, we do have some low-calorie meals. I've just waved to Pierre. Pierre? Yep. Okay, I've got his eye. He'll bring out a smaller calorie dish at the moment. I'll just pour you another glass of wine, though. Do you have a hobby that you lose yourself in at the moment?
Not. Look, I I don't really have a hobby. I have design. So I guess design is my hobby in a way, in its own forms. And I fill up my time outside work with a lot of design. I don't know, that sounds so boring. Over the years, I've had a lot of hobbies, although I do have one thing. I guess I collect tattoos. So that's kind of a hobby.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd noticed your tattoos on some of the presentations that you're doing and on the creativity talks and that, Chi. And I did wonder, do you design all of those then? Are they all your designs?
No. I mean, I've never tattooed myself. I generally will come up with an idea that I'll talk to a particular tattooer that I want to be tattooed by, and then I'll work with them to figure it out. And generally I go to tattooers who have a particular style. So I guess my right sleeve was by a tattooer named Deno, and he's from Madrid. So when I lived in the UK, I was very lucky because it's a little hard to get a big tattoo from him. He sort of travels a lot, and I'd gotten smaller ones before from him, but I said I wanted to get a full sleeve from him, and we managed to sort of work it out where we'd cross paths in London or Spain, and he would finish off my sleeve for me. So I guess I have a few that are sort of by rock star tattooers, I suppose you would describe them.
And how long would that take to do a whole sleeve, as you described it, Chi? Because I have no tattoos. I've never had a tattoo. I have no desire to get a tattoo, but I'm always intrigued by people who do, and just the fantastic designs they have, and just how painful it is. I wonder how painful it is. Is it painful?
This is a question. Yeah, really. Does it hurt?
Does it hurt?
It's nowhere near as painful as having one removed with laser.
Oh, right. Okay. So you've had to do that, have you?
Yeah. So I've been having I say this very loosely, I've been having my chest piece lasered off. So I have a chest piece that goes right up onto my neck, and and it wasn't because I didn't not like it. I just felt like it didn't suit me anymore. And I'm going to get it redone, which I'm still kind of deciding what I want to do with it. But anyway, I've had 3 treatments. The first treatment I had was in this. So this will give you an indication of how painful laser tattoo removal can be. I had the first treatment in 2017, and then I didn't have another treatment until the end of 2021.
Oh, gosh.
It took me a good 3 years, 4 years to get another
4 years, yeah.
4 years. So, look, getting tattooed is not getting a lot of tattoo done. And when you say how long does a tattoo take, it really depends. Depends who you get tattooed by. Different people have different bedside manners. Some take it really slow. Some are faster. Some are really brutal. There's lots of different ways that you can.
Watch out for a sign that says brutal tattooist. I'm like, no.
That's not even a joke.
Soft, tender.
I was wondering as well, Chi, when you said you had a chest piece removed, I was thinking, oh, yeah, I would. But do you mean like a rook or a pawn or a bishop, something like that? You're thinking, I don't like chess anymore. I'll get that removed. Is that what you meant?
No, that's another egg corn. And no.
Hey, we got our first egg corn of the show.
Now, continuing on with our pin party, really enjoying the company so far. Who or what inspires you now?
Well, it's a hard question because it changes quite frequently. But at the moment, I would have to say that there's a couple of things. So Slavoj Žižek is my favorite philosopher. So he's a very interesting and influential person in my world currently. And then my favorite podcast is called Upstream, and I like to listen to that a lot. Sometimes I run out of podcasts to listen to. So
didn't have us on the list though, did you there, Chi?
Well, I've been listening to every episode, so
Noted. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, building
ruined the mood at the party, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I've changed seats now. I've gone to the other end of the table. I'm not sitting here. I could be insulted out somewhere else. Now, what big question are you wrestling with right now, Chi?
What big question am I wrestling with? If I say it, it's a bit dark.
Dark is good. Yeah.
Sometimes I wrestle with the question of when's it going to end.
Do you mean the podcast or more broad? If it's that bad, just say.
The litany of insults. Really,
she's just laying into us today, isn't she?
You give her one glass of good French wine, off they go.
Just stop pouring it. Put it back on.
Woo! And the other question, well, it's not really a question. The other thing that I think about a lot is we're doing it all wrong.
All right. So do you want to explore that a little bit more when you say we are doing it all wrong? Who's we and what are we doing wrong? Or how do we define that? Humans, yeah.
I like that.
Who, yeah.
And somewhere along the way, maybe we went, I don't know, I was talking to my husband the other day about alternate universes and, the multiverse. But somewhere along the way, probably around, I don't know, I'm gonna say like roughly maybe 1,200 years ago, we sort of went down this path of capitalism and things got a bit murky. And that's where things have really gone off course for the humans. And, you only have to look at what's happening in the in the world today where orcas are fighting back to know that, never underestimate nature and the world that we live in. And I think we do that too much.
Did you say orcas are fighting back?
Yeah, against yachts.
Really? Oh, I didn't see that one. Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
All right.
Off Gibraltar. They're attacking yachts. Yeah.
Whoa.
Watch out for a gang of orcas near you. Yeah. Yeah.
And before the dinner party comes to a close here, Chi, just how would you describe...
Yeah. So rude.
Taxi's outside, the engine's running, but I'm just going to ask this before you go.
Cool. Put the meter on, please.
And make sure this lady gets home safely. How would you describe what you do? What are your intersections?
Oh, how would I describe what I do? Well, there's what I do by day and there's what I do by night. Now, that doesn't mean OnlyFans, and there is nothing wrong with that. But there's the design.
Link in the show notes.
There's nothing wrong with, there's the design that I do by day and there's the design that I do by night. And the design that I do by day is the kind that capitalism wants. The type that I do by night is the type that fights against capitalism. And it's when we organise. Did you get that one? Did you catch it?
Yeah,
organise.
We see what you did there.
That's another egg corn there, isn't it? That's another egg corn. Yeah.
A little
one. Little.
So look, on a daily basis though, your design also, and the way you design also comes from a bunch of different areas. So if your look on the world of design sits between 3 or 4 things, what is it? What are those influences? You're in the middle.
Well, like I said, I mean, there's my practice by day and there's my practice by night. If I had to say where my commercial practice sits, it sits in the middle of business, environment, technology, and people, which all sounds very la-di-da. It's very nice. That sounds like it'll get me a job. But the design that I feel in my heart it sits at the nexus of, I guess, protest and dissent and socialism. I was going to say communism, but I probably shouldn't say that.
Taxi.
But no, that is interesting. So business, environment, people, tech, and protest, dissent, but also presumably progress in that as well, that you seek to see that design help humans make progress. Is that right?
In a commercial perspective, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I tend to think that humans are more the problem than the solution. So, I definitely, from a commercial perspective, I definitely try to help organizations understand how to take into account the experience of people in whatever it is that they do. But the reality is that that's a very anthropocentric approach to design. And I don't think that humans are the center of the universe. Unfortunately, that's the way that the world currently works and operates, with humans at the center. So it's funny because over the years, I've described myself at times as a human-centered designer. In fact, I was I was a host on a podcast that was about that very thing. But now nothing repulses me more than the thought of human-centered design.
So if it's not centered around humans, what should it be centered around? So I think this is a big question.
Look, at the moment, there's a lot of discussion about different names for what people call these things or this approach. There's life-centered design or planet-centered design. Ultimately, what we need to do is strip the colonialist ways out of the way that we think about what we do, and these things can be deeply embedded in us. And it's not just about, people of colour and so on. I think this is something that we're all conditioned to deeply within us. So when we're born, we are born without any conditioning. And progressively, very quickly, in fact, we become conditioned to the ways of the world around us. And that is built on layers and layers of generational colonialism and capitalism and patriarchy. And in order to move past that, we're going to have to get outside of the ideologies that we currently reside within.
Is that, just as you were saying that, Chi, I noted in your talk, Dude, Where's My Creativity, that recent event that you did, you talked about dialectical materialism, which had me perk my ears up. And you then started talking about Marx and Engels and ontological design. Is that idea that it's not, what is it I said? It's not our own mind that determines our experience. It's almost like our world shapes us and we're responding to that. Is there something in that? Was that?
Yeah, so it's the...
Or is that a real sort of cack-handed way of saying something that was very, very profound?
No. Look, I mean, I think I tried to simplify dialectical materialism in that talk, but essentially the best way to think about it is that design in it of itself is part of the human condition. We try to solve problems around us. That's natural for us to do. And in response, that changes the world, and then the world changes us, and we design more things and back and forth. And that's ontological design. And this is how the world operates.
So, Chi, the Occupational Philosophers was born out of the idea or the desire to explore, the interplay between creativity, curiosity, imagination, philosophy, design. So we'd love to get to know a bit more about your work and your ideas. We touched a second ago on the fact that you delivered a talk called Dude, Where's My Creativity at it was at the Design Outlook 23 conference or event. You were wrapped in bubble wrap. That just seems like a really good place to start. Can you tell us a little bit about that talk?
Yeah, so the bubble wrap. Okay, so there's a movie, 2000s film called Dude, Where's My Car? Probably famous for Ashton Kutcher. It's a stoner film, probably a little bit not PC compared to today. We've come a long way.
20 years ago, you could do whatever you wanted. So, yeah.
Yeah. Look, there's some things in there that aren't that great, but it's an interesting film. In fact, I don't know, maybe it's a cinematic master. Maybe it really is a cinematic masterpiece. I do say that in that talk, kind of jokingly, I was half about it being real. There's a couple of things about that film that are really interesting. Firstly, the plot line is very interesting, and the talk I was asked very specifically to talk about creativity and how to introduce creativity into design. And over the past couple of years, I was very sick. I have some chronic illnesses. I have chronic fatigue, amongst other things, but I also had this thing called thoracic outlet syndrome, which is something that I had to have a major surgery on my brachial plexus for, had to have a rib removed, very long recovery. And it was doing all kinds of things to me because it was it's a compression injury, and it was compressing my veins and nerves, but also my subclavian artery cutting off brain from my heart to wherever that blood goes into my arm. And it's a really good way to lose an arm. So they fixed that up. And during that time, I was pretty depressed at times because I had a major injury, couldn't really do anything. I couldn't drive. I was previously I'd been very independent, and suddenly everything that I knew about the world, and for me the world is a lot to do with design, it just kind of stopped. And I had to try to figure out what I was without design. And I thought that there was an interesting correlation between that and Dude, Where's My Car? Because in that film, the plot goes that these two stoners, they go out the night before, get really messed up, come home, and in the morning they go out to find their car, and it's not where they left it. And hilarity ensues as they try to find their car. And the punchline is eventually they find their car right where they left it, out the front of their house. There'd just been a postal van in front of the car. And so it was right where they left it, which I think is a really good analogy for creativity, because it's this mysterious vapor-like thing that comes and goes, and sometimes you feel particularly creative. And then what I went through definitely showed me the depths of what it's like to be completely the opposite. So that's where Dude, Where's My Car came from, where the idea for the talk came from. And the bubble wrap suit in the film, there is a cult, and the cult all wear bubble wrap suits because they think they're going to space. So, and they actually wear bubble wrap suits and Vans shoes. So that's what I wore, because design is very cult-like. And so I wanted to create this visceral and tangible connection between the story that I was telling and what people were seeing. And it's quite interesting because also, I don't know if it's really visible when you watch the talk on video, but a lot of people's feedback was, I wasn't sure where to look. I wasn't sure whether I should look at you or if I should look at the screen, because there was a lot going on, and that was on purpose. But we can go into the deconstruction of the talk.
Just on that note, having watched it, the first thing I was struck by, Chi, was just the slides, the animations and documentary snippets and stuff. It reminded me very much of Adam Curtis, the documentary filmmaker. Is that what you were going for?
That's exactly. Yes, that is exactly
it's really good. Just kind of sort of jars people. It's getting people sort of thinking through what they're seeing and what's being said. Yeah, I loved it. I thought that was great.
Oh, that makes me so happy, because you're the first person who has mentioned that they compared it to Adam Curtis, and that's exactly who it's meant to be like. Because I mean, well, that's another influence. So I'm super influenced by Adam Curtis, and particularly All Watched Over by Machines of Loving Grace. That's probably my favourite of his documentaries. P.S. I went to film school, so I'm a bit of a film nerd.
It shows. There we go.
Now, just on a logistical level here, John's gone highbrow. I'm going to go a bit more lowbrow. How was your body temperature in the bubble suit? Were you quite sweaty? And or what was the process of making it? Did you have a friend help, like to put together sort of a bit of a seamstress approach, or did you sort of think, nah, I'm about that outline and I'm going to, what's the logistics of that?
Okay, so the first thing is you can get anything on Amazon, including a bubble wrap suit. So got that, because of course people dress up as this as a costume for Halloween and stuff. So I got the bubble wrap suit.
All right.
And it's a funny story actually, because I tried on the jacket and I was like, yeah, this fits great. It's got Velcro, feels good. But I didn't try on the pants because I thought they might be a little bit tricky to take on and off, and especially because, they're plastic, it's going to get sweaty and so on. So I waited till the morning of to try on the pants, and I was in my hotel room and I just thought, I'll just throw them on. So I threw them on. They ripped straight up the bum immediately. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do now? They've ripped straight up. straight up the butt.
Straight to Bunnings,
So,
get some more. Can you just patch that?
Well,
tape?
I wish. This was like 8 o'clock in the morning. I was the first speaker at 9:45. So we had a problem. So when I got to the venue, thankfully, the fantastic people from the venue had some clear sticky, like big sticky tape. So I patched it all up, and I patched the crotch up, and I put extra sticky in there to make sure that it would be hold really fast. And I put everything on, and I went up on stage and I went through it. And I don't know if you saw this bit, but there's a bit in the talk where I go, I ripped the pants. And it's because I actually ripped my pants right up the inner seam on the leg on the stage, which was actually quite a good thing.
I have one more question to you about the bubble suit. I have to ask this. Is that the perfect suit if you're nervous to be going on stage at all? Because I'd just be there popping it. I just feel myself just wanting to pop all the bubbles one by one in that kind of sort of comforting way. Is it not tempting to do that, or did other people want to do that?
Other people wanted to do that. So I had quite a lot of people come up to me afterwards wanting to hug me so that they could try to pop as many bubbles as possible. But I didn't want anybody to hug me because, quite rightly, it was stinking hot inside it. I was sweating. It was, when I took it off, it was literally like I had a bucket of water poured inside.
Well, that answered my logistical questions. I'm just going to make a note to myself. Maybe not go for that. Now, I know from sort of going sideways maybe, or maybe down the same path, I know from previous conversations you have a particular interest in French philosophers. Can you tell us a little bit more about this and how this has maybe influenced your outlook on design?
Well, I'm particularly interested in Deleuze, and he's probably one of the more complicated philosophers, I suppose. But at the moment, I'm in my Derrida era, which basically, for those of you who don't know who Derrida is, that's okay. I'll paint you a picture. Imagine you go into a little bar in Paris and there's a man in the corner, very drunk, talking shit. That's Derrida. So
talking to Toulouse-Lautrec, or
well, yes, talking to anybody that'll listen, talking to thin air, probably. Derrida, he is quite the polarizing philosopher. Some people say that his work is absolutely bullshit. Other people say that he's one of the foremost geniuses of the 21st century. I don't know. He's a really polarizing character. But yeah, for me at the moment, Derrida's deconstruction is something that I'm really focused on. And it's interesting because, so there's a bit more background behind that talk. So I'm actually going through the process of using Derrida's deconstruction to deconstruct that talk in reverse, because there's so many elements within that talk that are so purposely fabricated in that particular way, and there's so many hidden meanings. So, for example, you know how you just picked up that visually there's a nod to Adam Curtis. There's hundreds and hundreds of layers in that talk, and it was intentional. You're not supposed to be able to focus on what was going on. What I'm saying is not supposed to particularly give you a particular type of message. It's meant to be a departure from your average design talks that you see at conferences, any talks that you do at conferences. So at the moment I'm working on that, and so I'm building this deconstruction around something that I like to call post-design, which is really the topic that I announced this term as part of my talk. I didn't really explain what it is, or I said, I hope that people find their post-design, which is really about saying I don't want them to go and think about what post-design is. What I want them to think about is what their inspiration is, because post-design is my inspiration. It's my magnum opus. It's how I want my design practice to look. I hope other people go and find that for themselves, not to practice post-design specifically.
Now I'm going to jump in and ask a question, and this may not be the right question because maybe it doesn't have an answer, but if it did have an answer, what is your version of post-design?
It's a really good question. I don't necessarily have a direct answer, but I can give you an example, a nice example that is recent and that folks who are listening to this can go and have a look at. So very recently in LA, there was a whole lot of chaos over some newly designed bus shelters called La Sombrita. Now, these little bus shelters, and I just want to point out, there was only 4 of them. They were prototypes that were placed around various parts of LA. Only 4, not that many. LA's a big place, lots of buses. But there was a public outcry about La Sombrita. Now, La Sombrita, for those of you playing at home, is a bus shelter that is very small and it doesn't really give you any shelter. And it's very interesting. It's solar powered. It has a light on it. And it was designed in conjunction with particularly women and people of colour to understand what they would want from a bus shelter, and then in conjunction with the municipal councils of Los Angeles around what their budget was and, what the rules are in terms of designing bus shelters. And so La Sombrita was born. And so there's this public outcry. Well, if you Google La Sombrita LA, you're sure to find mountains of articles from everything from the New York Times to just the Guardian and just about everything else that are ripping on La Sombrita. But if you look carefully, you will find some information about what La Sombrita really was. So La Sombrita was an experiment. It was an experiment to point out the flaws and to critically call out the problems with, let's call it, sidewalk architecture in the LA area. Okay, so La Sombrita in itself is quite a hilarious name because I asked one of my students who's Spanish, what does La Sombrita mean to her? And she laughed and said, it means little shadow, and it's quite a funny term to use. So the name in of itself is not only ironic, but kind of sardonic. It's very tongue-in-cheek and appeals to the locals, I suppose.
No, as you were saying this then, Chi, I was trying to grab hold of that definition, if one can, around post-design. You said it has an element of absurdity, but it also seems that it's designed to provoke in some regards. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So I've been working on a set of, I'd call them characteristics of what post-design is. I'm not sure. It's funny. I don't know that it's something that needs to be defined, like here's a ticked box list of things that it is or does. But what I can explain to you some characteristics which very specifically are related to La Sombrita. And I'm looking at different examples of design that have these characteristics. So it needs to have an element of absurdity. So it's nonsensical. It's something, as a person, you recognise that that doesn't make sense. That's really ridiculous. It needs to have it's sardonic, right? So sardonic is an interesting word. It's an old term that means to smile in the face of death. So it's something that is quite tongue-in-cheek, and it usually is representative of a smile. You might have heard of the term sardonic smile. So it needs to be something that makes you sort of smirk and mock. It has to be allegorical, so there needs to be a secondary layer of meaning in it. So the design sort of has this superficial storyline, but underneath it there's this meaning that has a purpose. It needs to be provocative. And I'll just point this out. So we're thinking about this in terms of La Sombrita, but if we were to think about my talk, and for those playing at home, I'd suggest that you probably go and have a look at it now, because you'll be wondering what the hell I'm talking about. But I'm hoping that you can see where I'm going with this, that the talk that I did was actually designed around this set of post-design characteristics. So as you said, it definitely needs to be provocative. So it needs to incite something, make people do something. It definitely has an element of the spectacle, which definitely for me draws on people like Guy Debord and the Situationists, and then, things like punk and post-punk. It's certainly what I would describe as a post-designally element to those things. It needs to be critical, so it has to analyse something. It has to say something about the world. It needs to speak to what's going on, what's wrong. It needs to have an element of nostalgia. And that the reason that that's sort of the little glitter that's sprinkled on top is because that makes it relatable. So, for example, with La Sombrita, the thing that makes that relatable is, in fact, the name La Sombrita. Of course, LA is a very multicultural place, but they have quite a big Latino community. So the name La Sombrita is very funny to people in LA. And there needs to be an impracticality to post-design, or something that's post-designerly. It shouldn't necessarily be worth putting into action. You should actually look at it and go, why did they do that? And it should create a kind of mythology. And I'll come back to La Sombrita particularly about what happened. So I guess the final two elements, and one of them I'm a little bit not sure about at the moment. One of them is that it definitely has to be intentional. So you need to do all of these things with serious intent and moral. And then I'm tossing up whether or not to include that it has to have some countercultural component, but maybe it doesn't necessarily have to have that. Now, when it comes to mythology, I think the thing that's really interesting about La Sombrita is that it went viral. That's a type of modern mythology, creating something that just takes on a life of its own, not to mention the fact that they created so much hype about it, kind of negative hype, that drew attention to the thing that they were trying to show, which that it was completely ridiculous, because that's the rules that they had to play by. They had a budget of $10,000 per unit, and they had to abide by all of the sidewalk laws.
I have to say, Chi, that's after having said, what is post-design? That's quite tough to answer. You gave the most comprehensive answer I think I've ever heard. I mean, intent, absurdity, allegorical, insight to action, spectacle, critical. All I can say is I'm never going to look at a bus stop the same way again. Chi, this thought experiment has us delve into the great minds of French philosophers, who we know you have a soft spot for. And we're inspired by a UK TV game show called Blankety Blank. I don't know if you know that. And it's where celebrities had to fill in a blank around a well-known phrase or saying. For example, if I was to say to you, complete the following saying, nip in the blank, what would you say there?
Derriere.
Yes, well, that's it. Nip in the derriere or the derriere. Nip in the butt or nip in the butt or blank in a china shop. Yeah, you get the idea? So with that simple idea in mind, yes. Here is our version where you have to complete the sayings of well-known French philosophers. It's called Blankety Blanc.
Do you see what he did there?
So here's the first one for you. I'm going to kick you off nice and easy. I think, therefore I blank.
I just want to say blanc at the end.
Oh, yeah, I should say blanc, shouldn't I? Not blank.
Blanc,
Yeah,
blanc,
I think,
blanc.
therefore, I blanc.
What's the blanc?
I'm sorry. It's actually, I think, therefore, I don't watch The Real Housewives of Melbourne. There we go. You thought you knew your French philosophers there, Chi, but that's a poor start. That was René Descartes, wasn't it? I think, therefore, I don't watch The Real Housewives of Melbourne. It's a classic Descartes quote.
Right. Well, I thought you were good, but let's go to the next one. Okay, another French philosopher. Hell is blanc people. What's the blanc?
Oh, God, I don't know. Hell is full of people.
It's by Jean-Paul Sartre. I'll see if you can get it. You might know him, Jean-Paul Sartre. Apologies for the...
I do.
So, hell is blanc people.
Full of people. No, I don't know.
Hell is the village people. So, no, you didn't get that right again either.
That is not true.
Well, according to our explanation.
We got them all. We've got them all
according
here.
to our research.
Right.
I've got the research.
I'm going to sort of mix it up now, make this a little easier for you, Cheese, because I'm going to tell you the philosopher first, okay, if that helps. So this is Voltaire. Judge a man by his questions rather than his blanc.
I can't answer that one. That's not safe for television.
I don't know where you're going.
Work.
Go on. What do you reckon's in the blanc? What would you like to?
What's the blanc?
Judge a man by his questions rather than his blanc.
Answers?
Sorry, it's eyebrows.
Oh, okay.
Well, I've seen some things in my time, but really. Okay, so let's try one more. We'll try and make it easy. This is by Michel de Montaigne. I believe I've said that right. Fill in the blanc. Stubborn and ardent, clinging to one's opinion is the best proof of blanc.
Oh, God, I don't know. I feel like an idiot. I think I heard Derrida say that in a bar in Paris.
So you're going with idiot?
Sounds like waffle.
Okay, well,
yeah, sure.
It's actually is stubborn and ardent, clinging to one's opinion is the best proof of eligibility to be a politician. So we're
an idiot.
Yeah.
I was right.
That's the closest one you've been. Now, John, we're almost near the end.
Last one. This is Jean-Jacques Rousseau. The world of reality has its limits. The world of imagination is blanc.
I don't know. This is too hard.
I'll read it one more time.
Well, if you know your French philosopher.
The world of...
No, not just any French philosophers.
Just Derrida.
Some of them are idiots.
Oh, big fall.
Well, Derrida.
You can just have a guess at this one, I think, Chi, like all the others, really. But the world of reality has its limits. The world of imagination is blank. Blanc. Sorry.
I want to say unlimited, but that sounds stupid. So
that's not bad. But it's actually the world of reality has its limits. The world of imagination is just off the A36 on the outskirts of Rockdale.
You were close, but I don't know. Interesting French philosophy. I'm not sure.
I think you've been spinning us a yarn there, Chi. You're not really into your French philosophers, are you? And that was blankety blanc.
Now, Chi, it's time for the not so serious business podcast advice time, and we're going to do this in a very fast and challenging way. So I would just like to keep it to sort of 1, 2, 3 word answers. Now, as a solopreneur or as an individual member of a team, what can I do to build my design sensibilities?
Just so you know, I don't do anything. I make it a policy not to do anything fast and rarely anything challenging. So
this is absolutely your thing.
Slow down. That's what I'm going to say. Slow down. That's my answer.
I like that. How about teams? How can teams bring more of a design mindset into what they do together? 2 or 3 tips there. What would be your thoughts?
Hire a designer.
3 words, so you nailed it. Now, finally, thinking some advice for leaders in any size of any organization who want to build and develop a creative or a more design-led culture. What might a leader need to stop doing? And what might they need to start doing? We'll go with stop first.
A leader should stop listening to other business people.
Excellent.
And what should they start doing?
I also was going to say they also should stop reading articles on LinkedIn. What
Unless
should
they're
they
mine.
start doing?
Okay.
Leaders should start having more fun.
Love it. I like that. So we're going to start to draw into a bit of a close here, Chi. And so, again, staying with the theme of rapid fire, just some little one-word answers to some of these questions, please. What is one thing you couldn't do without in your life right at the moment?
My bulldogs.
We are building the Occupational Philosophers Manifesto. What one thing of all your learning do you think should be included?
No manifestos.
Provocative.
I was very solid on that one, wasn't I? I was like, zinger. That
Now-
one I know the answer.
Now you can speak in 2 words, okay? Now you can.
Is
Okay. No,
there a book we should be reading?
That's an interesting question. Yes. Oh, is it called The Value of a Whale is the book.
Now you're being imagine it's the sort of the twilight years. You've had a wonderful career, wonderful life. You decided,
Oh, bless you. How old do you think I am?
Oh, this is far into the future, Chi. This is very...
It's far
Very
into the
nice.
future. Let's say this is your twilight years, wherever you judge them to be. But you're led into your retirement home, and you're taken into the lounge room, the dining room. Everyone looks up. How would you like to be introduced? Here's Chi. She.
Hates you all. I don't know.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, we can run with that.
She put shit in your soup.
You are going to get chucked out. You've been chucked out of a dinner party already, Chi. Now you're getting chucked out of the retirement home. So I think there's a theme here.
It's like a coffee table book, places Chi has been thrown out of. So it's like,
Hey, Chi, what are you up to? What are you up to next?
That's a good question. Nothing much. I don't really have any plans at the moment. I'm trying to work towards my PhD.
Oh, nice.
Which is no small thing. Let's just acknowledge that when you say I haven't got any plans apart from my PhD. Like, that's a plan. Yeah.
I'd like to give a shout out to my 2 advisors, Scott and Philip from Torrens University, who put up with all my craziness week in, week out.
Surprised I've been kicked out of that. Now, where can we find you? Where can we connect with you? Where can we buy you virtual drinks? Where are you online and those types of places?
I don't really have social media except for LinkedIn. So the best place to catch me is definitely LinkedIn. Search for Chi Ryan, ChiRyan. And that's all, really.
Fabulous. Chi, look, it only remains to say thank you so much for joining us and playing and sharing all of your insights and wisdom. It's been great fun. Really enjoyed it. It's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you.
And you.
And you. You bastard.
No, I will jump in there. Chi, and you.
And you.
And
you. Definitely you.
You.
And you.
And
No, it's
always,
you.
I guess
you.
It's you.
No, you.
It just had to be you.
It's you. No. It's only you.
Hey, Simon. That was a really interesting episode there with Chi. That was a lot packed in, as ever. But we always like to say, what were the takeaways? What did you take note of? What some things really caught your ear this time?
Holy moly, loads of things caught my ear. What I liked, and I always think one of the things I maybe haven't heard of before or thought about before, and often we talk around human-centered design as a way of delivering innovation. And then there's that, I've never thought about being human-centered, but I love her plays on that. Sort of the next step up is life-centered design. And then there's planet-centered design. So I just love that, those upper levels of thinking, which, it sort of takes your brain to a different place and a different framework for solving problems. And also, I love the comment, the world shapes us, but we also shape the world. So this little interconnected ecosystem of how we engage or influence, or I'm not even sure what the right piece is there, but that we all influence each other. It's a never-ending circle. And this whole idea of, post-design, or with, La Sombrita, the bus stop, and some of these things which are in it are absurdity, tongue-in-cheek, provocative, critical, has to be spectacle, nostalgia, mythology, like, wow. Like,
she
just showed you.
She does seem to be going to another plane, doesn't she? And you kind of want to go there as well. And you go, oh my gosh, as you say, it's the good old, it's a real paradigm shift. She just lifts it up to a different place. And you go, never have considered things in that way before.
Yeah, I felt like I was on design 1.0, and this is like design 10.0. So there's just so much there to think about. And I think, imagine you're talking around something at work and you go, well, as you can see, there's a little of absurdity as we wanted. And everyone's going, yeah, absurdity. Like, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, great set of corporate values, wouldn't it? Absurdity, provocative, ironic. Is that? Yeah, that's who we are. Yeah.
That's just where my head went when I was talking about that. Imagine, stand up and you go, this year, absurdity. Woo! I love it. I so wish I might use that one. Thanks, Chi. All right. What about you, John?
I caught much of what you said there, the way we shape the world and the way the world shapes us, that ontological design concept that she mentioned. I mean, she talking about dialectical materialism. I mean, there's some real deep stuff in there. Derrida, the polarizing philosopher, and deconstruction. I mean, it was fantastic. I'm going to look at bus shelters in a very different way. And of course, I want to go watch Dude, Where's My Car? Because it's not a film I've watched, but now I feel like I have to watch it. I know I'll be watching it on a different plane as well. So maybe I'll be able to get the true philosophical meaning from the film. Fantastic. Really enjoyed that. It's taken to a very different place, and I enjoyed that very much.
Yeah, what a great way just to blow your mind open with some different things. And I think that's, really what I'd like the show to be about. So thank you, Chi, very much. Now, John, end of the show. If there's one thing we'd like everyone to do,
it would be to leave a review. That really helps. Give us a rating. Obviously, we'd prefer 5 stars, but feel free to be honest.
Not too honest, yeah. Or your feedback.
Honesty laced with compassion. So, yes. And tell people about it. That's always a good way for us to get the show more widely sort of known and out there and shared with more people, build that community of listeners, as it were. And aside to that, in the meantime, all the things we would ever say as occupational philosophers to stay curious, make stuff, play more, have fun, and
most importantly, today, each and every day, date life.